And on that note, it's time that we cover a little bit of news before we get on out of here. Let's start off here. Eric Bischoff. As you know about Eric Bischoff, he is very, very against AEW. I think his shtick, along with Jim Cornette, is to criticize everything AEW does.
I
That's how they get there. Go
I
ahead.
think Cornette, his critique and shitting on AEW is a little bit more valid and comes from a place of knowledge. I think Eric Bischoff kind of goes out of his way to go scorched earth on AEW. I don't think there's any experience there at all. I just think he has an axe to grind.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is. Now, him and Tony Khan has gone back and forth before, but, he was on AEW, and then, like, after he appeared, he started shitting on him, so, I don't know. It's just weird. I definitely think there's something to it of, like, oh, this gets views. Unfortunately, that's how social media is. You do something and it gets views, you keep doing it. But yes, on his podcast, he was talking about the recent struggles of AEW, the rapidly declining viewership. The latest thing is in 2025, they are going to be running smaller venues. So they're one step now above a bingo hall.
Nice.
And this got him to comparing Tony Khan to that of Dixie Carter, because TNA, they had their moment where they thought they were going to do something. They flew too close to the sun, going head to head against WWE and got crushed.
Well, real quick, I remember they started booking the arena events like well in advance and shit. I remember the criticism being that you don't know how long this wave's gonna ride, and it seems to be coming true.
Yeah,
Like they did all these big venues, they don't have the audience for it.
they don't. And they
They
need to
ran
get
them
the
away.
audience. They definitely do need to get the audience back. I'm rooting for them, actually. So yeah, Eric Bischoff, he says, well, I think the question was who was a better booker? Although Dixie didn't aspire to be perceived to be the head booker of TNA, she at least know what she didn't know and brought people in for her. I remember they brought in Russo at some point. Eric Bischoff was
Twice.
there. Hogan.
They had an infamous pay per view where the entire arena chanted "Fire Russo," and Dixie's response to that was firing somebody else.
I did remember something about a boycott or something.
Well, they fired Russo. At one point, they hired him back, but they did it in secret. Like they didn't tell like the parent company, so they're unknowingly paying Russo, and it was leaked via email, and they denied it. It was a big thing. It was stupid.
Yeah, I think I very clearly remember that.
I might be a little
But
sketchy on the deets, but that's the general gist of it.
fair enough. But yeah, and then they said that's why I think Dixie Carter's better than Tony Khan as a booker. Tony Khan, because I think I already said that she recognized her weakness and tried to surrender herself at various times with various people to operate in that world. Whereas Tony Khan thinks he's a good booker, and clearly he's not. Tony Khan doesn't know what he doesn't know, despite the obvious data being that Tony is a data analyst from what I've been told. You would think one would simply look at the numbers and go, okay, well, this stinks. It's not working, so I'm going to do something different. Dixie would have done something different. Tony's not doing anything different. I think Dixie, in retrospect, was a better booker. And that's the controversial thing, is that he says that Dixie Carter is a better booker than Tony Khan.
I
Uh,
don't know. Dixie was a liar. She was conniving. She lied and cheated to her business partners. She probably did that to the wrestlers. She did what the big knock on Bischoff was and hire a bunch of ex WWE people.
well, I think it was working.
It was working.
Essentially, I mean, they were hot for a minute there.
I don't remember them ever being hot.
I don't know. There was a time where they were hot, and
Okay.
but I just remember, yeah, Hogan saying, "Well, we're going Mondays." I don't know. I guess it is a good question to ask: is if Tony Khan is as good or equal to that of Dixie Carter? I guess it would
I
have
would,
to play out.
how real is the John Moxley shit?
What do you mean?
Didn't he give creative control over to John Moxley?
That's the story.
Is that story or is that real?
I don't know. That's what John Moxley says, or
Okay.
he's in charge of booking this whole Death Rider angle.
Oh, okay.
I do think Tony Khan should be at a point where he at least gives up some control. Maybe you can put yourself in a point where you're put it on my desk and I'll approve it or not. You don't have to be in the weeds that much where you're coming up with everything.
He's not a very good storyteller.
Yes. Now he is a good moment maker. I'll give him that. Like he can make moments, but let us know what you think on it in the comments. Is Tony Khan better or worse than Dixie Carter? I'm interested to see where where that conversation goes.
Yeah, I don't think there's any difference, really. They're both kind of clueless.
Yeah, I think that was the point that Dixie Carter, she was clueless, but she knew she was clueless. But then she brought Russo and Bischoff, and
That doesn't help her case, though, because they were just as clueless. Hogan only knows how to get himself over.
well, maybe that's what they needed.
Apparently not, because
Just think Hogan thought he was going to create a third company, brother. Speaking of Hogan, shout out to his daughter, Brooke Hogan, who apparently has gotten married to some NHL player, not a black guy, I'm going to assume. As we know, the Hulkster wouldn't have stood for that.